Okay, so with that being said, I will share my screen. Okay. I'll turn the video off. I will share my screen. Okay. I'll turn the video off. I will share my screen. Come on, how are you?
Hey, doing great. Can you guys hear me?
I can do indeed. So I think what we'll do is let me kick this off and we'll get the show on the road. So basically, welcome to the New York Collaboration Meetup Group. Sorry for the slight delay there. There's a few technical issues, but we're all in full working order. So firstly, welcome to February the 5th, 2019 meetup. We got Kanwal from Lead to Lead. He's going to be talking about the digital, designing the digital hub. I've known Kanwal, you've probably known for about 9 years now, I think, from Sharepoint Saturdays. How long have you been, and you're at another consulting, Bright Star. How long have you been with Lead to Lead?
With Two to Lead, we started about almost 5 years ago. It's our 5-year anniversary is coming up in April, May timeframe.
Right. Okay. 5 years. Very cool. And where are you based?
We're based out of. I'm based out of Toronto. Everyone at Two Lead works remotely, so we've got staff across all of Canada and Europe as well as Asia.
Okay. Very cool. All right. So with that note, I'm going to make you the presenter. So I'm going to stop sharing, and you should take over. Cooch, you better take over.
Thank you. Let me share my screen here. All right. Hopefully everyone can see my screen. Thank you so much for jumping on, and hopefully you get a chance to view it later if you weren't able to connect today on this. I've got quite a few slides to go through that I'm hoping we'll be able to touch on a few things in terms of some of the practical tips on how to design a digital hub and make it really effective. We obviously are talking about your digital workplace, so there's quite a bit there to kind of understand what is a digital workplace, how does that come to fruition. At the end of the day, keep it simple. It's really about how you take advantage of technology and how it makes you do your job more effectively and you're able to be productive. This is the New York City's Microsoft Focus Enterprise Collaboration Group. So there's a clear focus here on Office 365 and Microsoft 365 and the benefits that they provide. I want to call out one thing, that your digital workplace is not about you just enabling technology. So for example, if you're not familiar with Microsoft Teams, enabling Teams or just enabling Office 365 like a SaaS product doesn't mean that you have that and now everybody's using it. It's not that clear cut. There's obviously some clear financial benefits to taking advantage of SaaS products like Office 365. I'm not going to go too much into that. I just want to highlight one thing, that one of the huge benefits now is that as you're adopting technology that's being hosted and is somewhere else, your employees don't have to deal with technology upgrades that happen every 2 to 3 years. They get to deal with feature upgrades and enhancements that happen every 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 3 months. So one of the callouts that I want to make is make sure that you're looking at how innovation can benefit you. Make sure you're looking at the roadmap. So throughout my presentation, I've got quite a few slides that showcase that. If there's one thing you would take away from today's Connect, is make sure you go to roadmap.office.com. Have that part of your daily or weekly routine or bi-weekly routine or your monthly routine as you start your day off with a cup of coffee. Just understand what features are being rolled out, because that'll really help you take advantage of technology effectively within your company. And kind of going back to what is a digital workplace, I think at the end of the day, as technologists, what do we really want? We want this. We want employees to be ecstatic, employees to be happy, users of technology. We want them to be very, very happy with using it. I try to look online, searching for employees who are happy with digital workplace or employees who are happy with technology in general, and couldn't really find anything. But this gentleman here really stood out, having the time of his life. And at the end of the day, I think that's really all we're trying to achieve. So with our Connect today, we've got about 30 minutes to go through quite a bit. Just a reminder, the slide deck is on slideshare.net. I posted a link here as well. And there's a couple of topics that I want to go through. I'm going to be skimming through quite a bit and touching upon some of the key highlights here. But at the end of the day, just if there's one thing you take away from today's presentation, not that I'm a CEO of a company or I've been fortunate enough to win a few awards or be recognized for the impact that I have, but that I'm super good looking. I've been fortunate with my good looks to get really far in life. Right. No, I think it's really, really important to recognize that we're all in this journey together. So if you've got questions, put them in the chat window, reach out to myself, SoHo Dragons, and try to learn a little bit more from each other so you can get a little bit more educated and inspired on how technology can help. And as Peter mentioned earlier, I am based out of Toronto, so there's a little Drake reference there for you guys if you didn't catch that. All right, awesome. Let's dive in. And like I said, we're going to spend a couple of minutes on each one here. And for those that have attended the Hangout, as well as Peter, if you've got questions as we wrap up each section, feel free to ask. Because every time you and I have connected, we've kind of learned something from each other as well. Mm-hmm. So it's part of one of the key successes that you want to look at from a vision point of view is how is that technology, that digital workplace, going to benefit your leaders, your employees, your organization. Those tenets are really important to recognize as part of your success. So one of the things I want to call out is that for any digital workplace to be successful, one practical tip is that the stakeholders need to be cross-functional. You cannot have a successful digital workplace where it's just IT invested into it, or just HR who's invested into it, or it's a communication team or the marketing team. It needs to be a collective, cross-functional stakeholders that help represent and address each other's needs and share some of their key takeaways. So make sure you got that, because they're going to help you really ensure that, hey, we should really reach out to Joe, we should really reach out to Richard, or we should really reach out to Steve and Sarah and others who are kind of key champions within the organization. They represent the employees, and collectively as both stakeholders and champions, you're able to define a vision that articulates, the business priorities, the business objectives that everyone's trying to achieve. So when you look at mapping out that vision, here's something that you can start with as a kind of a starting point. Have been doing strategy engagements quite a bit, helping CXOs, executives, and stakeholders understand the impact that technology has on their organization. Make sure your vision calls out who the vision is for. So it's empowering who? It's empowering employees. What is the vision trying to achieve? It's trying to make the employees be productive. And then how? Well, we're looking for them to increase their engagement and adoption of an integrated employee digital experience. Start with answering those questions, and it's a really good kind of North Star to start with, because you want to know how people are going to take the challenges that they face on a day-to-day basis and how they're actually going to take benefit of the digital workplace. So, and this is important as well, recognizing the pain points that people have, the challenges that people have, because a lot of times when I go into an organization or I connect with executives, they want to invest so much into, let's say, the digital hub. They want to invest so much into building this amazing intranet and investing so much into it. But what they don't recognize is most of the pain points are not about the technology. It's or expanding the technology and adding enhancements. It's really about leveraging it. So the pain points really help align. And if you can start aligning budgets and priorities, business priorities to those pain points, your employees, your users are going to really benefit from that. So one other thing that I want to call out is make sure you are connecting with not just the champions, but understanding your organization, and not the individual Kyles and the Johns and the Judys, but really understand across the board, get some inside intelligence on your organization on what is critical for a broad spectrum of employees. So in the design thinking world, it's essentially called personas, which are essentially user profiles that are represented. And I'll show you a quick example right after this. But really effective is you get a couple of your key champions, a couple of your biggest vocal people who are challenged with technology or your biggest advocates. Make sure you have a mixture. Get them together and run a champions workshop on helping define that persona, because you'll learn a lot around what the priorities are. A lot of times, what at least I learned early on in my career is that sometimes we assume the right answer is a whole new feature, and sometimes it's just as simple as, oh no, this is how you create an email and how you make sure you don't hit reply all and send it to the broader group, right? This name right here defines that it's going to a distribution group. So something as simple as email and just advocacy there can go a long way. As part of my slide deck that's available on SlideShare, you're able to see kind of a sample persona for Judy, the consumer, which for most digital workplaces is 90% of that persona, or 90% of the users are that persona. We're going to be leveraging technology to consume content and take advantage of that. So get a good representation around what are some of their attributes. You know, are the consumers have high level of online experience? Are they engaged socially, internally, or you know, where do they want to do going forward? Currently, they're using Outlook quite a bit, but going forward, they want to take advantage of other technology as well. So it kind of gives you a nice little ballpark of where people are. So that's kind of the vision section. Understand your employees, create a persona, map out a vision, and make sure you get cross-functional stakeholder engagement. Any questions? I'll pause.
No, I'm good. Good. In terms of adoption, what are your, do you cover this, but what are your top tips for adoption?
Yes, we're going to cover that as part of organizational change.
Very cool.
We'll next couple of sections are pretty quick. Roadmap is important. Vision's been defined. You've identified who your key users are, your champions are, and now it's reiterating again with those stakeholders, with those champions, and the biggest advocates within the organization around, you know, understanding their user needs, understanding what are the things that they're looking to achieve and what are the things that they're looking to take advantage of from the digital workplace. 6 months from now, 3 months from now, 3 weeks from now, your new application, solution, intranet, whatever it might be, is going to be implemented. What are your hopes and dreams for that? So get their laundry list. One thing that I've really seen success with is limiting that their user needs to 10. So they have to be very specific on what are the key things that need to be part of the digital workplace, the digital hub, and get very specific on those and limit it to 10. That'll really help a long way. And in terms of how they capture it, just try to make sure on the sticky notes or on a whiteboard you capture as part of the user story. This is really important because what you don't want to do is have people, stakeholders, champions, etc. You don't want them to tell you what the solution is, because a lot of times people say, hey, I just want search to work better, or I just want this little gizmo that I saw on another internet. Like, that's awesome. I appreciate you sharing an idea of how it should be implemented and what it should do. So that's the I want this. Help me understand why you want it. Why is it important to you? So usually it's kind of the Austin Power rules of asking 3 times. You know that movie where Austin Power is asking a villain 3 times and he tells the truth? Do that during the workshops as well. Ask them why 3 times, and you get deeper and deeper insights into why they were actually looking for predictive search results, etc.
Right.
Yeah, some other things you can definitely do that help out is categorizing user needs. Again, very similar to pain points, understanding your user needs. But I think the key thing really is Moscow. This method, you can look it up on Wikipedia, essentially encourages everyone in the workshop to get engaged, participate, and more importantly, collectively prioritize the user needs. So imagine you have a group-based or persona-based user needs. There's 5 personas, and everybody's captured 10 user needs per persona. That's 50 user needs in total. Now go ahead and prioritize those: the must, the should, the could, the won't haves. Go ahead and map those to what you feel are the right metrics. So typically must have for me, from a timeline perspective, is regardless of the budget or timeline, I need that ASAP. I need that to be successful. That's critical now. And then of course, should I have the money and the budget, I would want to have that. But usually must have for me is 3 months timeline, should have is 6 months, could have is in the next fiscal, and the won't have is it's not this fiscal priority. So when everyone in the room is helping prioritize some of that, it goes a long way, and it works a lot better than the Moscow method. I found worked a lot better than using numbers or fiscal periods or quarters. It just really abstracts the decision making and more focuses around getting the conversation going, which is really what you want to hear as part of that. So as you're building out as you're getting the user needs and you've got the priorities, the next step here is to map it out as part of a product roadmap. Right, your role as a consultant, as a developer, as an architect is now shifting to become more of a product manager. So make sure you capture after the workshop, understanding all the Moscow prioritization approach, where the activities, where the features, the user needs need to map, and where they get contained. And this is really important, really effective, because you want to be very clear and very honest with the stakeholders, the champions, on, hey, we heard you about responsive design and the staff directory, but we're going to prioritize that for Q3, which is where we're going to do release 1. We're not going to do that as part of the beta or the pilot because it's not part of our critical path. So,
quick questions asking. Sometimes the UI and the UX needs from users, while design a DWP, they get a little exhausting. How do you plan for that?
Designing a page? Sorry, could you clarify that, Peter?
Okay, so in terms of getting the UX design from the users, what's the best way to get that? Because sometimes they say we want it like this, we want it like this, and then you end up sort of like spending a lot of UX wireframings. What's the best way to actually extract that information from them?
Yeah, great question. I think you have to recognize your role as part of, it is a collaborative effort. So you definitely want to hear feedback from end users and executives and stakeholders, but at the same time, they've put their trust in you to deliver a quality product. So I've always taken UX feedback as I really appreciate it. I'm going to take this insight, but based on your timelines and budgets, here's what we can deliver. So I think UX for me is no different than any other requirement. You've got to prioritize it in terms of what is achievable within timeline and budget, and how does that fit into the larger picture. You'll see on this roadmap, for example, beta and a pilot, the only look and feel that we're doing is out of the box branding, which is in the buckets in yellow or pink. We don't get into custom UI until release 1. So let's get it out there. And then in terms of the UX feedback you have, let's revisit that once you've had a chance to leverage out of the box branding or what's available today very quickly. So I think the key is, how does that impact how quickly you can get it out to users? Great question, Peter. Moving on to the roadmap, you built out a product roadmap, but how does this fit into the larger picture for the organization? So your roadmap, there's a multitude of roadmaps you can map out. One is for the actual solution, the product that you're looking to build, as well as from an organizational perspective, how does this map into their digital workplace? What are the things that they need to focus on to transform as an organization and to make better use of technology, right? To be more productive. So it's important to capture and map out those themes and make sure those themes really align effectively to their business objectives. It'll really help the organization and the stakeholders go back and say, hey, we've identified that intelligence search is a huge priority for us, but we never had accounted for that within our budget, or it needs to be a higher priority than it was before. So really, really helpful. And I think overall, just it's been really effective road mapping to map out based on timeline what different organizations are doing, or what different departments are doing within an organization, or even what are the different projects that our organization is tackling on, and mapping that out. It's saved a lot of sanity, improved a lot of success metrics for companies, just to have a basic idea from a PMO perspective of what all those different projects are, initiatives are, and how they map out. So biggest takeaway there is visualize and prioritize your needs, and make sure that's very clear and share that publicly as well. Make sure you share that with all your employees of, this is our roadmap and we've heard your feedback, here's where it's going to be. So that's the roadmap section. Just in the interest of time, we'll speed it up a little bit. The metrics section, there's not a lot that I've captured in the metrics section, but I think it's really important to understand, at least in the, in terms of product, what analytics a product provides, and make sure you're educating content owners, people who are actually adding content, what those metrics are. So a lot of time content owners will say, hey, we want to integrate Google Analytics or something or other, and we want to get these fancy analytics. That's awesome. That's easy to do. But what are you actually going to do once you get those metrics? What are going to be the next steps? If instead of 6 people liking this, it's going to be 10. Is that going to impact the type of content you add or not? So make sure you have those outcome-based discussions around what is possible from an analytics point of view. And of course, mapping your business objectives and what technologies they impact. So if you're trying to reduce technology costs as a business objective, a lot of technology helps with that. If you're trying to reduce, let's say, travel expenses, tools like Skype for Business, most recently Microsoft Teams, Google Hangouts, etc., they reduce a lot of travel expenses and impact on the environment. So if that is a business impact, make sure you align those objectives to the technology, and then that'll help you prioritize your roadmap as well. It kind of feeds all into it. There's a lot of ways. There are a lot of ways to get those insights on those metrics. Office 365 as a platform is consistently improving and doing a really effective job of capturing how users and employees are taking advantage of the technology. So if you wanted to look at that a little bit more, I encourage you to look at that. And I won't go into workplace analytics, but if you're already mature from an analytics point of view as an organization, reach out to me, and I'm happy to dive into workplace analytics and the benefit there. But I will say one thing is that we've written a really thorough, detailed white paper around metrics. So I'd encourage you to check out office365metrics.com, which kind of goes into example metrics that you should be capturing for a successful improving ROI on Office 365, and then whether those metrics are possible out of the box or whether you need to build a custom solution, we even map that out for you. So very, very short section there. We'll move on to experience, and this is something that's really close to my heart around experience. And like I said, I'm kind of going to skim through quite a bit of this. There's a lot of detail in the slides as well. But one thing I do want to mention is that when you're building and designing on top of a platform, make sure you take advantage of the platform and what it provides. So for example, and I see this very often with other companies and other developers and UX designers, they recreate some of the existing experiences. One example, Office 365 does a great job with the Office 365 Suite Bar, and they've also implemented responsive design as part of that. Take advantage of it as part of your experience, because it really helps employees switch between all the different applications across the board. So no matter what application they're going to be in Office 365, that Suite Bar is going to help them navigate to the next application, the next productivity tool that they need access to. So keep that in mind. With that, I want to just highlight a couple of things. One of the things that I want to highlight is you can actually configure the Office 365 logo. You can actually direct that logo to a URL of your choice. So you can actually specify some of the out-of-the-box applications, or you can specify an actual URL, whether it's Office 365 URL or it's an external one. You could do that. We've seen a lot of good success, great success from a best practice point of view. Like a common pattern is having that logo go directly. You can have your own custom logo and have that custom logo go to your intranet. So no matter what application users navigate to, they will always have one click away from their intranet. I'm not going to touch upon the Office 365 app launcher, but one thing I'll just highlight is make sure you recognize the benefits and make sure you, as part of your adoption of Office 365 or as part of an adoption campaign, educate users on the benefit of the 365 app launcher in terms of you can actually add tools and applications and improve single sign-on. There's so much. I could spend a whole hour on the sweep bar. From a customization point of view, Microsoft's doing a really good job in terms of starting to plan out and map out some of the patterns. For example, giving you extensions and placeholders for the top navigation and the bottom, the header and the footer, where you can actually build customizations there. For a product, a SaaS product, they're doing a really good job in terms of the extensibility story. Today, we still see examples where sometimes the experience, especially the top navigation, because it's so critical, needs to be customized. And there's a lot of great examples of that. Happy to share those with you as well. But here's one customer example where for this law firm, practices, offices, departments were up front and center. But the law firm here wanted to empower all the lawyers and the partners to create a site for whatever topic that they wanted to. So as they created a site, they could also have the option to specify whether that site was public or private. Public meaning it was available to internally to all the other partners, or private meaning it was restricted to just the people that they decided. And this was one of the quick ways or quick wins from a site provisioning point of view and allowing or empowering partners to have self-serve options right in the top navigation menu that help them embrace and adopt Office 365.
Here's a question for you. Like here you've got Teams, which is a lot of hype and say focus on that. So you can see the user journey is getting a little bit, shall we say, blurred in terms of do we hit the home page and take it from there, or do we hit Teams and take it from there? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I think Microsoft's going to continue evolving that overall navigation experience. Like in this slide, for example, they're also taking the search button that was in the header of SharePoint and other applications. The search button wasn't consistent in terms of the placement. They're bubbling that up to the top navigation or the sweep bar that'll become a global navigation search experience for users. So this is coming fairly soon. So I think from a customization point of view, you should restrict a little bit of that. Just educating users on, hey, now that you're in the Teams interface, here's how the Teams navigation works. And if you want to switch to another application, here's how you navigate to that. So educating them on the Office sweep bar is probably a good starting point. And then, per application, how they can take advantage and benefit of all the different applications that, that are available. It's definitely a tricky one, Peter, in terms of UX and navigation and the challenges that we have there. Great call out. Microsoft, of course, on Office 365 is improving how branding experiences are. I just want to call out that just because Microsoft, if you're in the Microsoft and SharePoint space, one of the tips, tip number 3 is don't build a custom master page. The experiences that you see on the right-hand side are without building a master page. So they actually custom experiences using modern framework, leveraging site designs, and customizing it, but also following best practices so that the organization can still take advantage of all the great innovation that Microsoft's delivering on a weekly, bi-weekly, quarterly basis. So continue to leverage also the modern SharePoint UX framework, because they've done a good job in terms of the common UX patterns. I've been in the UX space for quite a bit, and it's getting to a point where they've done a phenomenal job in terms of their UX patterns that there's no need to recreate the wheel. So even if you build a custom control, look at Microsoft out of the box and mimic some of that functionality or mimic some of that experience so that you're not building it from scratch. So with that, we'll move on from experience point of view. and go on to organizational change. Just from a time check point of view, we've got about 9 minutes left with halfway through. What we've got remaining is organizational change, processes, content, technology. So I'll try to go through a little bit quickly. Like I said, they are available. The slides are available on SlideShare. Microsoft Teams, if you're an organization less than 100 employees, you should adopt Microsoft Teams immediately. Deprecate Skype for Business as an organization. If you're a startup and you can take advantage of Microsoft Teams for free and not pay licenses from that perspective. If you're an organization over 200 employees, then go ahead and start immediately a pilot with whichever team is willing to be on not necessarily the cutting edge, but part of the future, and get them to adopt it and start leveraging it. It's a great productivity tool. Outlook used to be my #1 application, and now it's Teams. So Teams is everything I use to communicate internally with the team. We don't use email. We obviously have another tool here that has notifications, etc. And then we use Outlook or email primarily with customers. Yammer is a great tool. If you're an organization under 50 employees, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge for you to adopt Yammer and take advantage of it. Where Yammer excels is where you want to have those water cooler discussions a little bit more openly, and you want others to be involved in it and actually have some clear outcomes from what is being discussed. So if today you don't have a big focus on social, it's okay. Yammer is in your roadmap. It might not just be immediately. One thing for sure I'll call out, and we'll wrap up this section, is make sure you've got an adoption campaign. Make sure you do recognize your employees. It's the easiest thing you can do because your employees are the center of your success. If not on a weekly basis, on a bi-weekly basis, highlight an employee who's doing an amazing job. And for today's webinar, I'll highlight Richard, who's doing a phenomenal job as a CTO and educating organizations, educating customers on how to take advantage of technology. So just a shout out to Richard as part of this webinar. There's a lot of stories, success stories, and I would say is that for each success story, stakeholder involvement is important, and making sure your stakeholders, your executives have the opportunity and ability and the passion to share a little bit more openly with employees. So whether that's through Teams, Yammer, email, through a blog post, it doesn't matter. That's the only way you're going to have organizational change, is if you reduce and remove some of those barriers and some of those walls and actually get people talking. From a process point of view, Microsoft's done a phenomenal job in terms of some of the functionality that they're delivering, some of the processes that they're delivering. I will just call out that if there's any automation that you're looking to do, look at Microsoft Flow, look at Microsoft Power Apps. They have done an amazing job with those two tools. I'm not going to dive into it because, again, I could spend a whole day on each one of those products. From a content point of view, just make sure you, as content owners, have clear focus on when to use a team site, when to use a communication site, and when to use hub sites as well. Because if you don't, content over time is going to become a bigger and bigger sprawl. It's going to be harder and harder to manage. So make sure you take advantage of things like hub sites and team sites. Plan for them effectively. There is a call out here for a hub site planning guide, aka.ms/planning SP hub sites. That gives you a good starting point. And really it's about the association and the relationship between the different sites and the departments, etc. So maybe start with your hierarchy, your organizational hierarchy, but that's not how people work. Immediately shift that model to how people work, and you'll have a very effective kind of architecture and how people take advantage of technology and how they're using the different sites and the different experiences. So there is a lot to discuss, and information architecture at the end of the day is like kind of the bedrock, the foundation for how you build a successful intranet. We do have a white paper, over 100 pages, Office 365 intranets.com, that kind of highlights that. If you download it, take advantage of it, hopefully it gets you going in your journey. Last but not least is around technology. So as part of your digital workplace, most of what we discussed today was just taking advantage of what you've already got in place, right? And then now what I want to talk about is where are some of the areas that you should be looking to invest and where are the areas that you should be looking to adopt a little bit sooner. So one thing for sure is out of the box, there's a site creation experience that's really effective and they've done a good job. But the moment you want to do some additional metadata, some additional association, or do additional things, you're going to need to start looking at a way to build either a custom process, provisioning process, or take advantage of some of the other tools like Power Apps and Microsoft Flow, and kind of bringing that experience together. So make sure you're doing that because it'll help you really integrate and set up from a governance point of view how your sites get rolled out, how your technology is adopted, and make that onboarding experience really, really effective. I'm not going to at all talk about multi-geo support. There are tons of components available, tons of solutions available from Microsoft. They're doing a phenomenal job. And I'm saying this as one of the, not just the biggest advocates, but one of the individuals who shares a lot of feedback around what's working, what's not working. They're continuing to improve, and as an organization, they have become agile. And one example of that is if you are looking to take advantage of SharePoint and see what's possible and you're a developer or an architect, make sure you check out the starter kit. It's on GitHub. It's essentially an entire internet solution available for you for free to use, to take advantage of. If you're a small organization, go ahead and install it. If you're a large organization, have your dev team break it apart and understand it so you can build it a little bit better. As part of your journey, we have also written another guidance and white paper around SharePoint migrations. Check out sharepointmigrations.com. That'll allow you to kind of download and get some insights around that. The biggest thing I want to leave with from a practical tips point of view is that invest in culture early, get releases, features out early to customers, to users, to end users. The sooner you get it, the better adoption you're going to have overall. End of story. And then number two is your role is changing. So if you're listening to this webinar, it's probably because you're interested in technology. Recognize that your role is shifting as a product manager, and make sure you're understanding how releases work, how sprints work, how to actually take advantage of Office 365 roadmap and build that into your own as well. There's quite a bit out there. I want to thank you all for listening. Really appreciate it. If you want to ever reach out, please reach out to me on LinkedIn, and my personal email is there as well.
Okay. Thank you, Kaman. 1 minute left, so I just want to thank you for your time and thank you for the attendees. I hope you got a lot of value. This broadcast will be broadcast out to the Meetup group with a lot of the links to SlideShare and to the blog references and the Microsoft links and GitHub links that Kaman mentioned. Okay, enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Stay warm, everyone. Bye, guys.